Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen Bennett, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hello, everyone.
Now then, Dennis, this is our last podcast before the summer break, I think. And
Indeed.
thanks for clarifying. I don't know what I'm up to these days, to be honest. Weeks are buzzing by, and it's going to be our very own summer recess because, frankly, if it's good enough for the MPs, it's good enough for us, Dennis.
Quite.
So let's make it a good one. Where are we going first?
Well, yes, we have two items this morning on the legal regulators, if I can put it like that. The first one concerns the SRA and ethics. This is the news that the SRA has been told that its plans to impose compulsory ethics training on the profession are deeply flawed. And this is from the Birmingham Law Society, Helen. And
Okay.
it's worth listening to, is that society. It's the largest regional representative group with 9,000 members. So it must be the biggest society by a long way. And what's happened is it's accused the SRA of being too prescriptive in its proposals for solicitors to prove their continuing competence, particularly in the area of ethics, which is so controversial, as you know.
It is because the regulator has proposed 3-hour mandatory ethics discussions every year, where solicitors will talk about their approach to ethical dilemmas to help them decide on the right course of action if they are confronted with the same situation in practice. Where a competence concern has arisen with a solicitor or other law firm worker, they would be required to complete specific learning and developmental development work.
Indeed. And Birmingham Law Society said it supported the intention to improve ethical behaviour in the profession, but asked for any measures to be proportionate, flexible, and effective. And
Mm.
in its response to the SRA consultation, Birmingham said, "We do not support an approach that requires significantly documented or heavily formalised reflection. In practice, it said, reflection is embedded throughout the normal course of legal work, including through supervision, matter-based discussions with clients, colleagues and peers, as well as ongoing professional development."
Well, that's right. And that's the sort of thing we do at LLG. And
Yeah.
actually, we talk about ethical dilemmas all the time. And I'm not entirely sure that doing this is going to bring forward those issues that people knew deep down anyhow weren't
I
right.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they did go on to say that many firms already have well-established systems, controls, and tools in place to support their people in undertaking and recording this information, that's information regarding ethical dilemmas, alongside regular performance reviews and personal and professional development training.
Yeah, and the response rejected the idea that ethical judgment can be developed or maintained just through participation in ethics
Mm,
discussions. Instead, ethical learning, they say, should be integrated, contextual, and continuous, and not confined to a single format.
absolutely. And how about embedding it in the qualification process?
Mm.
The Society also questioned the proposal for ethics discussions to be facilitated by a solicitor who's practiced for a minimum of 3 years. It said this would exclude other legal professionals such as barristers, compliance professionals, and Silex lawyers, as well as individuals with significant expertise in learning and development.
Well, quite. And this idea, it was said, may also have a disproportionate impact on in-house teams, smaller firms and sole practitioners who would struggle to meet prescriptive requirements. Ethics discussions would cost millions in total to put on and take away fee-earning time, the society said.
Well, the SRA's own figures showed that there were 177,841 practicing solicitors in June 2026. I think that's gone up from my day, actually.
Hmm.
A 3-hour ethics session delivered to groups of 12 solicitors at £100 per hour would cost in the region of 4.5 million across the profession before you even take into account preparation time, administration, room hire, or other associated costs.
Well, indeed. And turning to our members, what about our sector, Helen? Do you think the SRA approach is heavy-handed? Let's have your views on the LLG forum page.
Well, I think we'd be able to clock up far more than 3 hours a year. We have ethical dilemmas every day in local
Well,
government.
exactly. I think frankly, when I posted this item, I agree with Birmingham just about on
Yeah,
everything they've said on this.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on because the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has launched a consultation on revised statutory guidance for the best value duty. So an important consultation, and it's a recent development, I'll say, for local and strategic authorities across England. It was published on the 15th of July this year, so relatively short. Recently, and the consultation seeks views on how councils should demonstrate compliance with their legal obligation to secure continuous improvement in the way their functions are delivered.
Indeed, and as we know, the best value duty is a long-established requirement
Mm,
placed on local authorities, and it is intended to ensure that councils deliver services efficiently, effectively, and economically, and in a way that meets the needs of local communities.
yeah. Well, in May 2024, the government introduced statutory guidance designed to provide greater clarity on what constitutes best value and the standards expected by central government.
The guidance itself also sets out the range of statutory and non-statutory intervention powers available where authorities fail to meet those expectations. The current consultation proposes revisions to all of that guidance.
Well, according to the government, the changes reflect wider public service reform principles, including devolution, greater service integration, and a stronger emphasis on prevention.
Now, rather than focusing primarily on intervention, after significant failures occur, the revised approach now seeks to identify and address risks earlier, helping authorities to resolve concerns before they develop into more serious organisational or financial challenges.
Well, a key theme within the proposed guidance is organisational accountability. So the revised document places greater emphasis on authorities maintaining what it calls robust arrangements for self monitoring, self assessment, and effective scrutiny.
Quite. Now, councils are expected to have clear mechanisms for identifying weaknesses, challenging performance, and ensuring constructive oversight. And the guidance also highlights the importance of engaging with early assurance processes and accepting non-statutory support when concerns begin to emerge.
Well, these changes are informed by lessons identified through the government's 2025 independent evaluation of best value interventions. And these findings have shaped a framework that encourages, as we've said earlier, engagement and stronger governance arrangements because the aim is reducing the likelihood of formal intervention even becoming necessary.
Mm.
Now, the proposed revisions, therefore, I would say represent a shift from a reactive model towards one focused on what's called, I love this turn of phrase, Dan, is continuous improvement and organizational resilience.
Yes,
It
sounds good.
it does sound good, although I'm sure we're supposed to be moving away from the word resilience with children, actually. I'm not sure where we're going next with it, but arguably I would say that the consultation does signal the government's intention to strengthen sector accountability, whilst at the same time supporting councils to improve performance through preventative measures. So
Mm. Here we are, we have it there now. The direction of travel suggests that authorities will increasingly be expected to demonstrate strong governance, which is where we come in, transparent decision making, and effective internal challenge as evidence of best value compliance.
well, there's a nice long run on this consultation. It remains open until the 7th of October. And LLG, as in previous consultations on the best value duty, will be responding and will be talking to our other stakeholders in relation to their views as well. So if anybody has any particular comments in relation to it, would like to contribute via LLG, please do get in touch directly with me.
Right, now turning next to something we haven't often had in the news, but it's been there in the background for many years concerning local authorities. It's the topic of equal pay. Now, the
Mm.
government have launched a consultation on reforms to the equal pay framework in an effort to tackle protracted claims, poor pay transparency, and weak enforcement of equal pay laws. In the consultation forward, the Office for Equality and Opportunity described the current framework as excessively complex, costly, and protracted, and I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Don't we know it in the public sector? So over the years, local authorities have been mired in protracted and hugely expensive disputes concerning equal pay. I'll get my words out. Concerning equal pay claims in implementing single column pay scales, which I think caused a lot of the problem. So the
Yes.
office too said that workers are trapped in endless litigation. It's not nice for them either. And
No.
employers face intractable uncertainty with employment tribunals facing, as we know, backlogs of tens of thousands of claims.
Yes, and a number of councils have been subject to equal pay claims in recent years. Most notably, Birmingham City Council was forced to issue its Section 114 notice in 2023 amid historic equal pay liabilities, estimated to be around a breathtaking
Mm,
£750 million, Helen. Huge sums of money.
massive.
More recently, the GMB union announced that more than 4,000 women had joined an equal pay claim against Leeds City Council, valued at hundreds of millions of pounds. And the union is also coordinating a separate equal pay claim against Coventry City Council.
Well, the government said its consultation seeks views on measures designed to prevent pay discrimination before it occurs, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Also, to strengthen enforcement and simplify the resolution of disputes when they do arise. Now, among the proposals are increased transparency over pay practices, reforms to make discrimination claims faster, fairer, and more cost effective, and the creation, interestingly, of a new equal pay regulation and
Hmm.
enforcement unit. Who that will be comprised of, we don't know, with stronger powers to uphold equal pay law.
Interesting. Back to the consultation. The consultation document argues that the current framework fails to provide employers and workers with the data and tools needed to identify discriminatory pay practices. It places too much of the burden for enforcing the law on individuals,
Mm.
encourages lengthy disputes, as we've seen, over technical details, and does not provide sufficient protection for groups including disabled employees, ethnic minority workers, and indeed outsourced staff.
Mm. Well, the government said it intends to first improve the existing system by streamlining procedures and strengthening transparency and enforcement, as we've said. But that's going to come before introducing broader reforms to close gaps in the law and extend protections. And again, this consultation has a fairly good run of it at 15 weeks.
Well, good luck with all of that. This is an area where we need to see change.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Now, Um, we said we had a few regulator items. Here's the second
Hmm.
one. In fact, there's two in one here because debate over the future of legal services regulation has resurfaced following a series of developments that have prompted renewed scrutiny of the Legal Services Act, that's 2007, and the regulatory framework that governs the profession in England and Wales. Now, this comes from recent reporting by the Law Gazette, this whole item does, which highlights growing pressure from both regulatory commentators and professional bodies for a comprehensive review of the current system.
At the centre of the discussion is an independent review of the Legal Services Board, the LSB, led by Richard Lloyd. According to the review, the LSB has struggled to maintain strategic clarity and has not consistently delivered effective oversight over the frontline regulators. Lloyd concluded that the organisation had, in some respects, lost its way, allowing significant regulatory shortcomings to emerge across the centre. This is strong stuff, Helen.
It very much is. And the review argues that stronger oversight and a more coherent regulatory structure may be necessary to protect consumers and maintain confidence in legal services. I think probably is necessary. Is that
Yep.
controversial? I don't
Uh,
think so.
Yeah, I think this review is saying what many people have thought for a long time, and the review goes beyond criticism of the LSB itself. It recommends that the Ministry of Justice should undertake a comprehensive examination of
Yeah.
legal services regulation, including whether the current regulatory framework remains fit for purpose. The report suggests developing a future model by 2029 that could lead to a more integrated regulatory regime during the following parliamentary term.
Do you
Interesting.
know what? It is interesting, and I think that's the right way to go because
Yep,
in the sense that let's stop pointing fingers, let's stop moaning and pointing fingers. Let's go back to what it is we need,
indeed,
and
indeed.
build something coherent. That's yeah.
I
So
think what's helped, if I may say, just putting in here, what's really for me demonstrated the need for change is that the late responses to all of the things that have been revealed by the Post Office scandal
yeah,
inquiry.
yeah.
The LSB was not ahead of this. They've been behind it all the ways, and to a degree, the SRA too. They are really following behind what's happened rather than being ahead of the problems in the profession.
Yeah, it's reactive, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the recommendations in this have, I would say, as we're discussing, reignited a long-running debate about the effectiveness of a system that, you know, it currently involves multiple regulators overseeing different branches of the legal profession. So there's no sort of uniformity there. And critics argue that the existing structure can therefore create inconsistency for consumers and complexity for practitioners. I think it's fair to say it has created complexity. Look at Missouri. The Legal
Yes.
Services Consumer Panel has also called for substantial reform, suggesting that the current framework is no longer adequately aligned with the needs of a modern legal market.
Quite. And at the same time, you said there were two parts to this item. The second part involved Silex. At the same time, Silex has announced plans to campaign for a review of the Legal Services Act as part of its wider strategy to strengthen the position of legal executives within the legal profession. Silex Chief Executive Jennifer Coupland argues that the legislation, which came into force nearly 2 decades ago, has not kept pace with significant changes in technology, legal practice, and consumer expectations.
Yeah, and actually, she also questioned whether the current framework of reserved legal activities and multiple regulators remains the most effective way to serve the public.
Hmm. Now, Silex also wants to address what it describes as outdated terminology and regulatory requirements that do not fully reflect the role of authorized Silex
Mm.
lawyers.
Well, I think his position is that reform could improve public understanding, increase regulatory effectiveness, and provide greater recognition for legal executives as a distinct branch of the profession. Um, and the Law Gazette notes that successive reviews have proposed similar changes over the years, but government ministers have so far stopped short of committing to legislative reform. Despite this, as the Legal Services Act approaches its 20th anniversary, the pressure to modernise legal services regulation, I would say, definitely appears to be increasing. And certainly, just from LLG's perspective, we are examining what a reframed Legal Services Act could look like for local government lawyers. Dennis.
Yes. Now we turn to something that's been in the news from time to time, and its potential reform of judicial review process. The government has launched a consultation on extending recent judicial reforms beyond national significant infrastructure projects, NSIPs, and
Hmm.
extending it to major housing development, transport, and energy developments. Following an independent review by Lord Banner KC and a government call for evidence in 2024, the government last year took forward a number of reforms to the judicial review process for NSIPs.
So, do you know, I was just thinking about consultations, Dennis. We haven't had
Hmm.
any sort of, I mean, there's always consultations, but these three that we're mentioning, they're big hitters for local government. It's a bit like waiting for
Indeed.
a bus. Nothing came
Yeah.
along, and
Yeah.
boom, there's your three.
Yeah.
The consultation paper highlights Section 13 of the Planning and Infrastructure Act, that's 2025. It came into force earlier this year, and it requires NSIP cases to proceed directly to an oral permission hearing and removes the right of appeal for claims which are deemed totally without merit at that hearing.
Yeah, and going on, it said the effect is that there is now only one bite of the cherry for meritless cases instead of the three attempts that were previously available. The measure was used for the first time on the 24th of April this year in the Stone Street Green case, allowing an important solar panel project to continue with minimal delay. The consultation paper noted all of this.
Well, the government has also worked with the judiciary, it says, on further amendments to the civil procedure rules and associated practice directions to ensure NSIP cases were dealt with more quickly and consistently. Now, the government claimed the reforms, I'm going to quote them here: streamline judicial review for NSIPs, helping to reduce delays, deter weak and meritless claims, and ensure cases are resolved more quickly.
Hmm. Now, the current consultation seeks views on whether the NSIP judicial review reforms should be extended to other planning regimes in England and Wales, with the government noting it is particularly interested in major infrastructure projects and other strategically important developments consented under the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 and the Transport and Works Act 1992.
Well, the government added to that, and I'm just going to quote them verbatim because I don't want to get it wrong. So these are their words. While judicial review remains a vital safeguard, the consultation will explore targeted reforms, including limiting repeated unsuccessful attempts to bring claims and introducing clearer court timetables to prevent weak and meritless challenges from holding up nationally important projects while protecting access to justice and the rule of law. Mm.
Mm. Now, the government has meanwhile confirmed changes coming into force next week to remove mandatory pre-application consultation requirements for NSIPs. Minister for Courts and Legal Services Sarah Sackman KC said Britain needs more homes, better transport links and new infrastructure. Legal challenges which lack merit should not be allowed to hold back the developments that create jobs, drive growth and strengthen communities. Going on, she said, judicial review will remain a vital safeguard, but it cannot be a vehicle for delay. We want to protect access to justice while getting nationally important projects built faster. And the 6 week consultation will run until the 27th of August. So people will have to take it on holiday with them if they intend to respond.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time we've seen a government do that. And it's not this, it's all governments. Um, and I'm not a fan of it, Dennis. I'm not a
No,
fan of
I,
6 week consultation during the summer and during
yeah,
parliamentary recess as well. So how are people contacting their MPs at this time if
yes.
they wanted to make representations?
I'm slightly suspicious that it does take up some of the consultation time, of course.
Mm, surely not. Let's move on before I stray into commentary that's best left unsaid. But I think we obviously it's important. LLG have responded to previously the major um, consultation in relation to judicial review. As you said, this is not the first time we've been looking at it. The government's looked at it. So if anybody would like to make any commentary in respect of it, planning is very contentious, as we know, and we're seeing sort of the proposals in relation to committees and automatic decision making. I think
Hmm.
even though meritless claims, absolutely, I can
Yeah.
understand the intention behind this. It'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see what kind of responses are going to come back in on this, Dennis, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I mean, one of the things I've said before on this, I'm not convinced that all of these so-called meritless cases are designed solely because people want to delay something that is inevitable. I
Mm,
think it is sometimes, and probably more often, the case that people are caught in a situation where they see a development coming forward that they don't want to see in their
yeah.
area and have what they see as legitimate concerns that they want the opportunity to air in court. And to deny them that, I think, is to deny them justice.
Well, let's see what happens at the end of this
Yep.
consultation. And move to our final edition of the podcast. So, it's never the same without information governance,
Hmm.
Dennis. So, the Information Commissioner's Office has published its annual report for 25-26, and it provides an overview of the organisation's performance, achievements, and priorities during a period, it says, and I agree, of significant technological and regulatory change. Now, the report highlights the ICO's continuing role as the UK's independent regulator for information rights, whilst emphasising the growing importance of both data protection and transparency, but also public trust in an increasingly digital society.
Now, the annual report is designed to demonstrate, they say, how the ICO has delivered against its strategic objectives throughout the year. It reviews key regulatory activity, operational performance, and financial management, while also examining some of the organisation's most, as they describe it, impactful work across the public and private sectors.
Yes, because the report reflects the wider challenge facing regulators as organisations increasingly rely on technology, data and analytics, and artificial intelligence, and that's a biggie, to deliver
Hmm.
services and make decisions.
Now, they say a central theme of the report is accountability. The ICO continues to oversee a broad range of legislation, relating to data protection, freedom of information and information rights, ensuring that organisations handle personal information both responsibly and transparently. And in doing so, they say the regulator seeks to balance innovation and economic growth with the need to protect individuals' rights and freedoms.
Mm. And the report also places significant emphasis on performance and governance, and alongside a review of key achievements during the year of 25-26, the ICO provides detailed analysis of its operational outcomes, financial performance, sustainability activity, and I always find this interesting, whistleblowing disclosures. Now,
Mm.
this reflects an ongoing commitment, it says, to transparency and public accountability, ensuring their words that stakeholders can assess the effectiveness of the regulator's work and stewardship of public resources.
Additionally, the report identifies key risks that may affect the ICO's ability to achieve its objectives. As data-driven technologies continue to evolve, regulators face increasing pressure
Mm.
to respond quickly to emerging challenges, while maintaining clear and effective oversight. Now, the inclusion of risk management within the annual report demonstrates the ICO's recognition that a proactive approach is essential in an environment characterized by rapid technological changes we've seen and increasing public expectations.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to take my hat off to the ICO here in terms of the transparency because the report has extensive accountability frameworks embedded in it
Mm,
around corporate governance disclosures, remuneration, staffing information, parliamentary accountability statements, and audited financial reporting. Um, and I think really it's fair to say that those disclosures, go some way to providing assurance that the ICO is operating with appropriate governance arrangements
mm.
and maintaining standards of organizational oversight. They've really committed to that in this report, seems to me.
Yeah, yeah. Now, for information governance professionals, turning to them, we mean here legal advisors and public sector leaders, the 2025 and 2026 annual report serves as an important indicator of the ICO's regulatory direction. The document does reinforce the regulator's commitment to protecting information rights while supporting responsible innovation.
Yeah, and I have to say, actually, I met with some representatives when I was down at the LGA conference in Bournemouth, and
Uh-huh.
um, I extremely receptive, very engaged,
Oh,
seemed
good.
extremely receptive. I know members will have different experiences potentially, but certainly at the higher levels, I was fairly encouraged, and it was a pleasure to speak with them. And I think, getting back to the report because of this demand of the challenge of digital transformation, I think really we could take some comforts, if that's the right word, that the ICO is attempting to help organizations comply with legal requirements and maintain confidence in the use of personal data. Because at the end of the day, people's personal data is the most important thing to keep safe and process in the correct way, because there are important safeguards embedded.
Indeed.
Now, on that note, oh, I'm all sad. That's it for another edition of the podcast. You can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 27, available on the LLG website. Now, as I said at the beginning, we're taking a summer break during August, and the Grapevine podcast will return on Friday, the 4th of September. So do have a lovely summer break. And on that note, it's goodbye from me.
And for me too. Bye bye now.